This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Today is Friday, the 16th of May, 2025. We're so glad you could join us here today. Coming up a little later on in the program, we're going to talk with Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net and find out what happened in those closing markets. But first, we're going to talk with Rebeckah Adcock of the International Fresh Produce Association. Now, we know we grow a lot of corn and soybeans here in Iowa, but of course, we also have our fruits and vegetables that grow here as well, including apples, sweet corn, pumpkins, and much more. Well, those folks are also affected by tariffs and trade policies. We talked with Rebeckah about what's going on in their realm right now. Right now, talking with the International Fresh Produce Association and Rebeckah Adcock. Rebeckah, thanks so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
So happy to see you today.
All right, so I know we were talking before we got on the air. Obviously, Iowa always known for its corn and soybeans, but there is so much grown in that state.
Absolutely.
The farmers markets, we see the vegetables, the fruit, and obviously we have sweet corn and all these other things that go out in markets. We obviously talk about the farm bill and policies when it comes to the corn, the soybeans, the cattle, the hogs, and that's our main focus. But what does this mean for the people who are in Iowa or even around the country that are growing the produce, the fruits and the vegetables? What do they need to know?
Well, what they need to know is the specialty crop industry domestically is banded together and working on trying to do more, get more, see more happen for specialty crops in the farm bill. We fought very hard for some policy changes. We too are looking at if reconciliation is a route, you know, are there some things that we can do in the interim until the policy changes come through, very similar to other folks. Specialty crop industry has been hit hard by a lot of similar economic factors to our friends in the row crops. We do grow specialty crops all over the country, and we certainly sell them all over the country. And so consumer price pressures and consumption, you know, we knew fruits and vegetables are a huge piece of the health initiatives and the things that are going on for the administration. So I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity, but we still feel the same and similar sorts of inflationary issues, concerns about how tariffs work, concerns about do we have enough crop insurance tools. Little known fact, significant portion of specialty crops don't have crop insurance products at all. And even the ones that they do have in some places don't work so well. There's a few folks, the orchards, a few of the berries, a few people here and there in certain parts of the country that have some, but a lot of parts of the world that we operate in here don't have crop insurance. So that's a big issue for us. We've been working with the industry on that, trying to work with USDA on that, but ultimately we do need a farm bill to help make some of that better. Huge needs in research, all of agriculture does, so we're watching very closely some of those changes, and just institutionally, just making sure that we have the food safety support, the food inspection support, a lot of those mechanisms that are so important at USDA to our farmers. Everywhere in the world, labor is issue number one for us. Trying to have enough people to get things in out of the fields. So we also looking for farm bill for some things to get out of that as well.
So, you know, when we talk about the issues that you guys are looking at, how do you drive home that importance? Because we look at the amount of money, obviously, that corn and soybeans generate, but obviously, we always said food security is national security, and we don't eat our corn and soybeans directly from the field like we do with our... So how do you drive home the importance of making sure that funding is there, especially when you're talking about, right now, a bill that's been labeled as pretty expensive, and they're trying to cut costs here and there. How do you drive home that this is essential?
Well, the very same story you just said is that we are food security. We are, you know, grocery stores are kind of measured by what their produce and their fresh meat section, their fresh products look like. That's, you know, everything else is in the center of the store, and you know whether you like it or not, but that's pretty standard. You know, you know what you're getting. You're measured by your fresh produce, you're measured by your fresh meats, and we're a big part of that. And we also know that, you know, as far as the turn and the attention for public health and health outcomes and all the things that we know we need to do better with as a society, we're a key piece of that. Fruits and vegetables, we're not eating the half the plate that we're supposed to. You know, 1 in 10 Americans is just not filling that up. And so we know we have a story to tell. We know we're an incredibly important part of it. American agriculture, and especially crop industry, has a bright future, but we do need to do some structural changes at the government level to help support the industry, to make sure they get the regulatory reforms, some of the burdens really removed. The focus on American production is welcome. However, there is a retaliation and a dark side of that story that we're trying to tell on tariffs as well. The North American marketplace is truly a marketplace for fruits and vegetables.
And
so that's a challenge. Yeah.
We do talk about how the tariffs affect corn and soybeans. Again,
Yeah.
I keep going back to that as a comparison, but that's the
A lot
best
of
way to
similar-
understand it for Iowans to understand it. What have the tariffs done for your industry?
Yeah.
And how has that affected you guys?
Yeah, so as you might imagine, fruits and vegetables are grown in different places, somewhat different seasons. Within the U.S., we rotate where we grow, what we grow, how we grow throughout the year. Certainly that takes place on a larger scale across the North American continent. And we do bring some things. We have some things here, some bananas, some pineapples, stuff that we don't grow in the U.S. well, and probably will not commercially grow on a large scale that would meet the demand. So we're balancing between allowing the support and allowing that empowerment for U.S. growers and sort of bringing their strength up, but also understanding that in off-season or in products or in creating a more stable and fair, especially North American marketplace, the tariffs really aren't helping with that. We do appreciate what the administration hopes to do, and we think that we've got some good ideas: the regulatory reform, the stable labor market. But at the end of the day, our members do think tariffs are taxes, and we're especially, Mexico, we're pretty much in a good place with. But things are rough with Canada right now, like they are for everyone. Canada is responding differently. And we're seeing that show up in some of the contracts that our American growers have. And so we're watching that very closely and trying to see if we can get Canada back to the table.
One thing I find really interesting, we talk about the Farm Bill all the time, and it's always the ag side and the food security, the food products, the food programs, the nutrition programs. But obviously you guys are basically the linchpin caught between the two of them, because you understand how both need to have the funding they need. And yet you see the constant tug and war between the two of them as to who's going to get the funding and who's going to suffer the next go round. I mean, how do you play both sides and effectively show that, hey, they're both important? Yeah,
well, we view the focus on health, the Make America Healthy Again administration's focus as an opportunity really to bring fruits and vegetables to the table, to bring American agriculture, quite frankly, to the table. Lots of people make a lot of very healthy things. We happen to be in that mix and very proud of it. And we think there's great opportunity to figure out how we get better health outcomes, figure out how we get better access, all those things that we know are there. We also have, along with our fellow colleagues in the row crops and other parts of agriculture, there's some science questions about MAHA. There's some things that we know. We're modern commercial scale agriculture, and we use and do and operate in the same and similar ways that, different growing products, different techniques, but many of the same products, many of the same pressures that row crops have. So we're watching very closely the other side of MAHA that we know, if it goes off in a different sort of anti-science direction, would be problematic. But we're first and foremost approaching it as an opportunity. We hope our other friends in agriculture will join us.
All right, Rebeckah, is there anything that our Iowa producers of those fruits and vegetables need to know as we wrap up today?
Half your plate and sweet corn counts.
All right. Thanks so much, Rebeckah. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that again was Rebeckah Adcock of the International Fresh Produce Association. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. And when we come back, we're going to talk with Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net for the closing numbers. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. We're back on Ag Matters PM, and we're talking right now with Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net here after the close on Friday. And Curt, what did we see in those grains today?
Well, on the daily chart, we finished lower here. corn down 3 to 5 cents. Beans mixed, just down a penny and a half to up a half. Chicago wheat down about 8. So a little bit of disappointment there. On the weekly chart, corn was down about 6 cents, 6.5 cents. Beans down 1, up 4. Wheat was up about 3 cents. So kind of a mixed bag for the most part. Not a whole lot of new news. This week was kind of volatile until today with headlines and rumors floating around. And so I think everybody's kind of relieved here to go into the weekend and kind of see what next week comes at us here, Justin.
And the one thing I know we've been watching and talking about too is soy oil has been kind of quietly just been kind of taking it on the chin. And I know there's a lot of it's just because it kind of positioning that they're not expecting the RVO numbers to actually be pretty good. I mean, or is that what you're hearing, or is there something else behind that?
Oh, that bean oil is about like trading pork bellies here, straight up, straight down. It's kind of stable today, but mainly kind of looking at the numbers. They were talking over 5 billion gallon. Some of the wordage was down to about 4.4. Just policies, they're just trying to figure out what they want to do here. At least they're working on it here. The previous year or two, there's zero progress made on that whatsoever. And so we saw a situation where maybe the horse got ahead of the cart a little bit. We're going to have some news here as we move down the road. Just the timing on it being delayed spooked everybody. The NOPA crush report came out this week, and bean crush, is real strong, over 190 million bushels. Bean oil stocks just a little higher for the most part. But as we go into next week, we'll probably be watching this planting progress report. There's some areas fairly dry and there's some areas fairly wet. This coming week, they're kind of looking at corn planting progress to be 77 to 80% complete as a nation. Soybeans anywhere from 62 to 65% complete as a nation. And that still remains above the average pace for this time of year. When we look forward, the weather maps are going to continue to be the main market maker here as we get more into the heart of the growing season.
I have to give you this, Curt. You gave me a longer answer about RVOs than EP Administrator Zeldin did a week and a half ago. We asked him about it at an event in Washington, D.C., and his only answer was, "We're working on it." So you've already given me triple the answer there. But moving on to the livestock side of things, Curt, what did you see out of those beef and pork prices today?
Oh, the fat market, feeder market, about like the bean oil, except just twice as fast. We were stable today. The fats closed 90 to $1.30 higher. Feeders $1 to $1.70 higher. On the weekly chart, pretty well down $2-3. Some pretty nasty price reversals to the downside here. We're a situation where we're going to see some cash trade 229, some talk of 230 trades. So the fundamental side of the equation remains fairly firm. Technically, it looks a little sloppy with some reversals down. I guess we're in a situation where the dollar value meal is going to be bumped up to $5 value meal if this meat sector continues to remain relatively strong. The key will be this week's highs, technically some reversals in through there. Hogs, lean index is firm. Main thing on this beef sector is cookout featuring here as we ramp up for Memorial Day weekend here in about another week.
All right. Well, Curt, if folks want to talk about some of their market strategies, what kind of plans they should put in place, or find out where you're still finding a $1 value menu, how do they get in touch with you, Curt?
We'll work on that dollar value, but 1-800-779-1515 or go to agmarket.net. Click on Intel. That's where most of the team's news and research is at there.
All right. Well, Curt, we thank you so much for the insight. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you again real soon.
You bet. Take care.
And that again was Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at the closing numbers. You can find the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network market screen online at iowaagnet.com. At the close, July corn down a nickel at $4.43 and a half. Soybeans down 1 1/4 at $10.50 even. Soy meal down $4.50 at $291.90. Soy oil down 39 cents at $48.93. Chicago wheat down 7 3/4 at $5.25 even. Kansas wheat 11 3/4 lower at $5.16 and a half. At press time, Minneapolis spring wheat was down 7 1/4 at $5.72 3/4. Oats up 2 1/2 at $3.42 and a half. On the Merc live cattle up $1.05 at $212.22. Feeders up $1.77 at $297.60. Lean hogs down 37 cents at $132. Pork cutouts up 87 cents at $106.30, and Class 3 milk down 20 cents at $19.18. And that's been a check of our market recap, and that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all our content online, iowaagnet.com, as well as replays of the Iowa Ag Matters program, new Pods of Potential program that's out, Weekend Ag Matters, and you can get all that delivered free of charge right to your mobile device, along with the Market Podcast with analysis at openings, middays, and closings each day, where you find your favorite Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network Market podcasts. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Mark Magnuson, Riley Smith, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.